And welcome back. We are moving into our second segment. This is such an important conversation, and we are so grateful that the Belize Red Cross has volunteered two very well capable people to come on and talk to us about how to put together your family plan for hurricanes. We have with us Jessie Young, who is the Community Development Officer, and we have Feliciana Vernon, who is the Monitoring and Evaluation Officer. Good morning and welcome.
Good morning.
It's great to have you here, ladies.
Well, thank you for having us.
And the premise, of course, of this conversation is this little booklet.
Yes.
Tell us about it, Jessie.
Okay, this little booklet that you see here is what we call the Family Emergency Plan.
Yeah.
You know, we are already in the month of June to November, and we know what that is. And so it's very, very important for each family to have their own family emergency plan. And so today we are going to walk you through the steps of how to prepare a family emergency plan. And my colleague here, Feliciana Vernon, she's going to put in the information so that you can see exactly how to fill out these family emergency plans. And we have them at the Red Cross. They're for free. You can stop by and pick one up.
And there is one in Spanish.
Yes, we have them both in English and in Spanish.
Okay, let's get started so we can maximize our time.
Right. Okay. And so
designate a time to sit down with your family.
Yes, it must be filled. If you notice on the front page, it has a family. It must be filled out with your family, maybe around your dinner table or some family time, because each member of the family needs to know what is in this book. They need to know what their role will be.
And what about children?
Children are welcome too, as long as they have it good enough sense to know what to do. They have a role to play as well.
Okay.
And
good.
so we start off with the family name, the surname. That should be the surname of the family.
So let's
That's on the page 1 here.
Okay.
And then you would put the father's name.
If the father is not around?
If the father is not around, you have the mother. So you can use the mother name. Whoever is the head of the household goes there. And then you can list all the names of your children.
Yeah.
It's very important for you to list the name of your children. In this booklet, somebody can find this booklet somewhere, and they know that there are so many members in that family.
So the purpose of this booklet is not only for the family itself.
It's in case you get lost and somebody find it, they can't locate you, like what is happening with the volcano in Guatemala. They might not find you, but they find the booklet, and then they will know how many people were in that family and they're missing.
And so you also have the space for relatives who live in the house but aren't a part of the immediate family.
Your grandfather or your grandmother live in the house, with you, so you need to list them there as well. So you could.
All right. So that's just getting your particulars out.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. And then you go to the total number of persons in the household. It might seem like a lot of work, but it's very, very important. We need to know the gender of each person in the household. We need to know their age, children, babies, because the children and the babies, they're a vulnerable group. So we really need to know.
And they might have different needs too, like the needs of a female.
Yes, and that will be the other one, which is if you have any family member with special needs, over 65 years and older, person with disabilities, sick persons, pregnant women, and others. Those are vulnerable groups that really, really need special attention. So it's important that you list them.
And the total number of persons is important because you can plan how much resource you need, how much food, how much water, how much.
That's the purpose of having all the total number of persons in the household.
So then we move on to the next page, which is how many families live in the home.
Live with you. It's very important that you list the amount of family members living with you, because you might have 2 families in a household. And so every family needs to prepare their own plan. So if my daughter and her family is living with me, she needs to prepare her own plan. I need to prepare my own plan. So
and then you coordinate the 2 of them?
No. It's your family plan. It's a separate family plan. Yes.
So emergency numbers, list them down.
Very, very important again, because anybody can pick up this book and call the police, the ambulance, the fire, NEMO, the emergency number. Very important for each family member to know.
Yeah. So if you have like a 7-year-old, they're fully capable of picking this up and finding the relevant information.
And especially if they have been a part of helping you filling this out. They know the importance of it, and they know, well, that number is in that little booklet right there. Let me get it.
Like I see a lot of people when we have hurricanes in particular and we have flooding, I see them calling into the local radio stations.
Yes, they do.
Sometimes you're not getting help. The police probably are a bit slow. A lot of people calling in, and some people call into. Shouldn't the number for some of the local radio stations be there too?
Well, yes, we could add that in there as well. Definitely, like we could go under emergency numbers. We could just add it.
Or you have the other important phone numbers.
Right.
But if you do have the NEMO address, and there are numbers that they do provide that you can contact your district coordinator. Yeah, let's go. I want us to get into the planning
and if
before
you know,
we run
if you go into the booklet, it tells you that you need to have the numbers for the school, for the babysitters, for your workplace, your village community, and all of that. So
I see you have the date of preparing the plan. The importance of that is what, it expires after a time?
It does, because things change. You might add a new member of the family, maybe you move to a different location. So you have to update your plan every time.
All right, I'm rushing because I want us to get into the meat of the matter. So the first part is particulars. So I know that all of that is in listing your numbers, but let's talk about how you plan. This is where it gets started, right? So tell us about that.
So when a disaster strikes, you mentioned hurricane, but people could be anywhere, and hurricane is just one event, one disaster. It could be an earthquake, it could be a flooding, a tsunami, anything. War. So when we state where will we meet, it's because maybe you're at work, you're at school, you're anywhere else, outside, you're just visiting family or something. So when we say where will we meet, in front of a house, will you meet yes or no? Based on where maybe the family members are, because maybe you're at work, maybe your child is at school, you should meet at a central location that everybody knows. So another place in the community, what I would suggest is maybe meeting at a park or probably a bank or something that the child or everybody in the family would know. Outside of the community, where would you meet as well? If you're working outside, if everybody works outside of the community, if people who live in rural communities, who travel outside of the communities, the children as well who go to school outside of the community in high schools. So where would you meet outside of the community? And just listing the name and address just for clarity.
So is it option 1, 2, and 3? So you go, okay, first we'll try to meet at the house. So you know 3 places. I am going to meet my family in front of a house. And I go to the house, they're not there. Okay, so then I'm going to Belize Bank.
To the other place.
Yes. And then to the 3rd place.
Right.
Okay, good.
And it's very important to establish a safe area for your household. If God forbid there is a fire in the night and you have to run out, you already know, everybody know where that safe zone is. So if one member of the family is not there, then you know something is wrong.
And part of it as well is who you're going to meet, because I know some people commute. Some people work, for example, in Belmopan, and they live in Corozal.
Yes,
and if a disaster strike, they can't go back. So their kids might go to this public, this rendezvous point, but they also have to know who they're going to meet there.
Exactly. Exactly.
All right, so we have, what is a disaster?
So as I mentioned, a disaster is an event which results in major loss of lives and livestock. As we know that people, they raise their livestock, serious injuries, and causes major disruption in daily living.
Now that one is tricky, because a lot of people, when we ask this question, they would tell us, what is a disaster? They would say a hurricane, a flood, a tsunami, a volcano, eruption, whatever. But it only becomes a disaster if it causes disruption. If it just passes through, nothing happened, it's just an event. It's not a disaster.
I said it earlier, probably playfully, but one of the possible disasters could be war.
It's there.
Oh
Conflicts.
yes, worries
Conflicts,
and
yeah.
conflicts.
Yeah.
Yes, it is. It is.
Yeah. So it's hurricane, drought, epidemic,
us in Belize
floods,
Cross.
major traffic accident, earthquake, mudslides, conflicts. We have tsunamis. We have
Riots.
yeah.
And I always want to add to that list poverty, because poverty can become a disaster, and it causes a lot of different things. It can cause war, it can cause you know, people fighting for food, everything. It's not yet on the list, but I would like to put it on the list, as it can become a disaster.
So, community warning signals, what is that?
Okay, for instance, when the tsunami threat was here in Belize, nobody knew what it was. People knew of, if a fire, they hear a siren, and the siren was sounding all over the city. They did a good job at that, but most people thought it was a fire, so they couldn't care less. It wasn't near
the ambulance. Yeah.
Right. So it's very important to establish early warning signals so that people know what the signals are for a hurricane or an earthquake or a tsunami. You have to establish, and you could establish your own early warning system for your household. If I sung, or if I call the phone 3 times and it rings, you know you need to get out. You know, you can do it for your own household, with your own kids, your own early warning system.
And we also have examples like the river communities in the west. If the dam breaks or if there's some struggle there, there's a siren as well that people need to know in those areas.
Yes.
So it's listing down the potential warning signals that you
Right,
hear?
right, that you have. And educating your community on it as well.
Okay.
And that's what we're talking about home surroundings, like if you live next to a dam, or if you live next to the sea,
or you have a lot of tall trees in your yard, you know.
That can fall on your house or might block the road, you can't get out.
If I live in a low-lying area.
And the trees might block the road and you get trapped because you cannot get out. So you need to list all of those threats.
So this is your own assessment of your home and your community?
Yes, the family plan, yes.
Or if you live next to a ferry and the ferry has to move over before you get to somewhere safe.
Right.
Or a structure that looks unsound already too, in an earthquake, who knows?
Right. And so after you come up with your list of risk, you develop your action plan with your family. What can we do to minimize these risks, you know? And then you list your actions. Maybe I can cut the tree that will fall across the road, you know, something like that, so that
so let's look at, let's use an example because it's helpful. So let's say tsunami, because that's more sudden, right?
Yes.
So my vulnerability at my home is that I live near the sea, and I also live in a bungalow, right? A low-lying home. So that is a major vulnerability for me if there's a tsunami that comes in. So my first priority action then would be to evacuate.
Yes.
Yeah.
To go to higher grounds, definitely.
Okay.
And if I'm a business person, I need to be able to plan the time to secure my files or my goods in my store.
But in tsunami, you don't got time to do that.
No, because
That's been done before.
Good God.
You know
But that
that
would be a second priority to ensure that it's already done? Is that where you fit that in?
the tsunami threat, as you know, we don't have any warning signals or anything for that.
Prayer.
That travels like 600 miles, you know, per minute. So
prayer will help.
well, prayer is good. That is our source of strength.
But you stay and pray. The rest of us will plan.
But we need to get out too, because you have to, you just can't only pray and leave the rest there. You need to get to higher grounds. And the only thing that we can say to people that live on the seashore or low-lying areas is to run.
Yeah.
You know, go to higher grounds, go to the tallest building that is in your area if it's strong enough, but get out.
Yeah. And know where your items are. Like you would have your most important document in one spot all the time. So if I have to run, when there was the tsunami threat, I knew exactly where to go to take the documents that I needed, and got them and left.
Jane Usher community called it the grab and go bag. You get a Ziploc bag, you put all your documents in there, keep it in one place so that if there is a tsunami, if there is a fire, I can grab that bag and I can run with that bag. at least you save all your important documents. So every family needs to do that.
Yeah. So get your family together and discuss the different types of disasters likely to occur in your community. Right.
And we know in Belize it's mostly flooding and hurricane, maybe tsunami, but time's changing now, so you never know what could happen.
Well, if I'm in the hills in Cayo, I don't have to worry about tsunami as much, but I may have to worry about flash floods.
Yes, we do. And even we might not be looking at it, but the volcano in Guatemala, remember that the Belize River runs all the way out of Guatemala.
That's right.
And so that river can get contaminated, and that's our main source of water. Wow. So we can be affected by that
This
volcano.
is all very pessimistic and dark, man. We want to think about bright skies.
No, but we also have to prepare ourselves.
So you also think of what you will do in the event of each different type of disaster, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And so when you plan to, if you plan to evacuate, where are you going? If you're staying at a relative house, at a neighbor's house, or a community shelter, you need to know where these things are. Not because it's my sister, I could just pack up and run to her house. So this is the time now.
10 families
exactly. So this is the time right now to contact these people and ask them if there's a event of a hurricane or something, can I stay with you? So you reserve that space already there.
Well, can we take it for granted? This family, my sister won't turn me back. She lives in Belmont Pond. She has a big house. She's no way she's going to turn me back.
But you never know. She might already, maybe neighbors might ask her
Maybe she plans on evacuating.
If you didn't inform her that you were coming, she might think that you will shelter somewhere else. So she's not preparing for you. So you need to inform her, and you need to tell her how you will get there.
And
if you
some
will
people
come by a
don't
vehicle.
even know if their family is in country. So maybe the hurricane hits, you show up there, the house is locked. So there are many different options.
You might not even know if she's there. So you need to do all these things before, you know, so that you know exactly. And how will you get there? You need to inform her, I'm coming by a bus, I'm coming by boat, so that she knows that, yes, you're coming and how you're coming there. So if you don't reach, she know where to look, where to check, you know. And then that's why I said you need to assign roles and responsibilities in your household. So who is responsible for the vehicle that you'll be living in, to make sure that it has gas, to make sure that, you know, it has good tires, the jack is in the car, you know, something like that. So somebody needs to be assigned responsible for that.
This is interesting. So when you leave, you must tell a person.
Yes, you need to tell somebody that you're leaving, because if you don't arrive, nobody knows where you are. You know, so it's very important that you tell somebody, I'm leaving at 5 a.m., I'm traveling by boat, so I should be arriving by 6 a.m., something like that, so that they know your whereabouts.
And who's evacuating?
Yes. Who is going along with you, if it's your whole family, you know, they need to know all of that. And then before you evacuate, it's very important that your house is well locked up. So somebody will be assigned to that. Who will be responsible to board up the house, to lock up the house? Because, you know, during these times, people just, you know, they get like, they
frantic.
Right, they don't know what to do, and they start panicking and running around, and I need to find all my papers, looking in all the drawers, and they get crazy.
I think people really experienced that with that tsunami warning, because they didn't know, nobody really had thought of or planned what they would do in that event. So once you have an idea, okay, my job is, Kevin's job is to lock up, my job is to put the furniture up, or pack the kids or something like that, then
or to get the water bottles filled up, something like that. But every member of the household have a responsibility.
If you're leaving a vehicle, secure as best as possible against the strong wall.
Yes, you need to secure that, because it can be washed away.
That's true.
You know, you can put your stove, your TV on a tabletop or something like that, you know. So if your house is flooded out, at least, you know, maybe
you can try to save something.
Try to save
you know,
something.
You spoke about earlier being responsible, somebody being responsible for different things. But there's also the issue of, for example, a hurricane is coming and you have to stock up on supplies. So somebody should be responsible going and getting canned stuff and water and whatever you need. But my question is a bit deeper. About how much money would you say that you would need to have stashed to say, you know, if there's people already don't have struggles to meet their daily budget, but as an emergency,
you have to. For a hurricane, you have to.
As for an emergency fund, how much money would you think you need for like maybe a family of 3? Just to say, okay, just enough to get me to Belmopan, to get me to, about how much money?
Because actually you need to have like 3 days supplies when you are leaving anywhere. So I'm not sure if you spend $50 a day. It depends on the size of your family. But what we are trying to tell people from now is to, when you go to the shop, because a lot of people during the all the hectic and the runaround and the storm coming, they don't have any money at all. And
Poverty,
so you don't need to wait. If you go to the store and you have an extra $1, buy a canned food. Keep a box in your house. Throw that in there. Every time you go, buy something, buy a canned food, buy a can of milk, you know, put it in that box. This box is for
hurricane.
So that you don't wait to have a lump sum. You run to the store, you can't get food, it's crowded. Get a 5-gallon bottle.
Or it's sold out.
Buy 5 gallons of gas. Keep it somewhere safe that you don't need to be in that line if you need to evacuate. You see how many people were in line for that tsunami? All of them would have been washed away if that tsunami came. Because you can't be filling up gas.
And Jessie, I think what Kevin is getting at, I think, is important, because we keep on thinking there's time, but not all emergencies give us the grace of time.
That is so true.
Even hurricanes may take a last-minute dip and you have to evacuate, although you thought it was going down the whole while.
And it changed the course, and a fire, you don't have any time to plan for a fire. A tsunami is the same thing. It's run, just pack up and run. You know.
And cost of living is expensive and people are struggling, but it doesn't matter. In a hurricane, you need to have the supplies. So I think the fundamental message why we're having this segment is to tell people to start now.
Exactly.
Have one bottle of water reserved that you just won't open. Until November if needs be.
Hopefully. And then after November, if it's not used, you can use them, and then you replace them again in June. You start replacing them again in June. But it's very important to start buying your items one at a time from now, so that you don't have that rush, and then when the day comes, you don't have any money. And a lot of people are put themselves at risk because of that, because I don't have any money and I don't have any food. I have a family of 5. I'm not going to that shelter because I don't have any food. I will be embarrassed. And so they don't want to go. So they would rather stay at home and risk the lives of their family.
And even even a simple thing like, okay, I might have a family member in Cayo. A hurricane is coming, but I just don't have the money on hand to pay for the bus to get out there. And so I might stay here, suffer, the water might rise, I might be in Loris Bank at that point in time. Not Loris Bank, Los Lagos. And you know, I get in trouble just because I didn't have $20 to put us on the bus.
So put your bus money, your water,
it's very, very difficult because we know, it's very hard times right now we are going through, but we would, in Belize, we say save for a rainy day. So it's the same thing. You save $1 a day or a week or something, and you put that, don't touch that. You know, I have 5 kids, the bus will cost me so much to go. Save that money from now, $1 a week or $1 a day.
That's hard though, because you have to buy bolito on like certain days.
Come on. Come on. Let's be serious. But let's be serious because of this. We need people to understand that they have to plan ahead of time. And that's what we're doing here. But I also have something that I know we don't think about, which is diapers and baby food for the kids.
Oh yes,
and
that is
so
a part of this planning here, and I think we were coming to that somewhere there. But if you have a baby, you need to get baby food, diapers, your medication. You need, if you have sick people in the house, you need to pack their medications. All of that can go in the Ziploc bag along with your other items.
But some of those things are have expiration dates. You can't keep medicine or certain canned
No,
foods.
no. I say if you are sick and you are on medication, you need to make sure that your medication is packed to go along with you. In that grab and go bag, you need to put that medication to go along with you.
How many days should you plan for?
3 days.
3 days.
Yes.
That's a standard.
Right.
Okay.
3 days.
And that's for hurricanes, though.
Yes, that's for, well, I guess any shelter that you go to, you need to have a supply for 3 days.
Okay.
And so that is why it's important to have everything prepared from before it happens, so that when it does, if it does happen, we don't need to be running around like, you know, chickens without heads.
We should have an emergency plan for animals and pets.
Oh,
this is
yes.
harder for farmers and even
Yes,
people with domestic animals.
It's very, very difficult for them. But you know, now a lot of Belizeans now are counting their pets as a member of their family as well. But they need to know that they cannot take those pets to the shelter with them. It's very hard, but so they need to, there are places I think that you can rent to keep your pets during the storm. But if you cannot do that, you have to let them loose. Leave food for them.
Untied.
Yes, you can't tie them up because they have to survive. They can swim. If you tie them up, they will drown.
Marlene just spoke about something I never thought about. If I am a farmer and I have 15 head of cattle and 20 sheep, what do I do with them?
They normally would warn you if it's a hurricane and the flood doesn't come right away. Yeah. So you would have time to, they will tell you to remove your cattle, take them to higher grounds.
Farmers usually have like an alternate area.
They usually have an area higher where you can take those animals before. But a lot of people like to wait until it's the last minute and risk the lives of
themselves.
The rescue people, the policemen. Look what they had to go through in Earl. People waited until their houses were flooded out, and then they started to call the police officers to come and get me. Those police officers were working during that storm when they shouldn't have been. So they're risking their lives. I witnessed the Coast Guard boat transporting cattle in the Coast Guard boat to safety. These things can be avoided if we plan ahead of time. Don't wait until the disaster is already here, and then we start to call this one, call the one, and then we start to get annoyed with NEMA not picking up their line, the police not picking up their line.
And BDF isn't coming.
Right, we are to be blamed because we didn't plan properly.
And I think Earl is such a great example to all of us, not discounting the challenges people in those areas faced afterwards, but it shows that water rises rapidly.
Yes.
That was a Category 1 storm, and people were on top of tabletops and trying to get to second floor. Yes. So imagine if the threat is worse, and we didn't know exactly where would be impacted till the last minute, which is true. That's what you'll know with every storm. So plan. If I know I'm in a bungalow close enough to the sea that the flood water comes in, what do they call it? The
wave.
The storm surge that comes in, and I can't get anywhere beyond my own height, then I gotta move. I have to have an evacuation plan.
Exactly. You need to have a plan
during the storm.
No, and you need to know where you're going. And currently, we are working with communities to do their emergency plan, and we are telling them, if you are a shelter manager and you have already informed your community that you need to get to a shelter, and they decide to stay in their homes, if it's during this term and they bang on that door, you cannot open that door even if it's your mother out there, because you will endanger everybody's lives in that shelter. So you cannot open the door. It's during the storm. It's tough, but I have already warned you that you need to get out. You know, and you choose to stay. So
I don't see Belizeans doing that though.
Well, they have to, because if you have a shelter full of 150 people and you opening it for one person, knowing that the minute I open that door, the roof will go, water will come in, everything, you're killing everybody in that shelter.
And those are the tough decisions that people in the shelters have to make.
That's hard.
Yes.
Those are the very tough decisions. And I think, when we hear and it's horrible to hear people in distress. But I remember when it was Richard and we saw people having to be evacuated from the seaside in Belize City, knowing the storm was coming. And everybody who goes out is risking their own lives because you chose not to listen to the warnings. And that's the fundamental point. While we hope that everybody will have a big heart, if it's you, Kevin, you may think of, I don't want to die. I want to see my daughter live, and I am not required to go out, so I won't, because you should have left. And any person can decide that, because there are warnings in place for a reason.
There are.
So we plan.
And it's important. You have to plan. And I hope that people have learned a lesson from Earl, you know, with what went on during Earl, that now they hear the message to get out, that they try to find. And the important thing is they need to know where their shelter is. Every family needs to know, if I'm going to stay at home, if I'm going to a shelter, know where that is as of now, so that you don't be running around looking for any shelter, because each area has a shelter, each community has a shelter, so you need to know where that is.
I'm curious, what are special items? I see in your disaster supplies kit, you have water, food, clothing, and bedding.
The special items could be like your glasses. You know, you need your glasses to read. You need your medication. If you are a sick person, you need to take that along with you.
If you're asthmatic.
Right. Those are like special items that you need to take.
Also for the elderly, if they need wheelchair, persons in crunches, for babies, special items that they need. Even for even specifies for pregnant women to have a supply in case they have to make a delivery.
Wow.
In the shelter as well.
That's
so that's another special item.
Yeah, and in that box that you will be throwing in a can of corned beef and so on, you need to put like a hammer in that box, like a couple nails or something. If the window is blowing open, maybe we can quickly nail it up from the inside, or if a roof falls on you,
and you need to get out.
Need to have something to try to get out of that building. So you need to put like a hammer and some nails.
Even a whistle as well.
Yes, a whistle is also a part of that, especially if it's dark and you don't know where your family members are. You can sound that whistle, they will find you.
You know, a lot of people can't imagine, because we live in such a technology-driven world where a lot of things are taken for us. We switch on something and light comes on. We can't imagine when none of these things are working, when your cell phone isn't working, when you can't call, when there's no light, because you think a whistle, who's using a whistle in 2018? But when you don't have your cell phone, you need something that works with no power except for your breath.
Yes, and that's one of the things we also tell people to do. During the threat of that storm, you don't need to be on Facebook. You don't need to use anything as save your batteries. You need those batteries. Get an extra one. Now they have the power charger thing. Try to get one for your family. Charge everything up and only use your phone for emergency purposes.
That is so true.
You will run out of batteries.
You might be bored at the shelter and want to scroll Facebook, but
exactly.
Probably better use of your data and your power.
And that also goes under special items for entertainment, like books or games for children as well.
I don't like thinking about emergencies, but you know what? I do have to say one thing. We've had Earl, which had its own challenges, and previous storms as well. We've had flash floods from tropical depressions. We're seeing what's taking place with the volcano, and we have the panic of that tsunami warning. And so I think we need to be very realistic as Belizeans in terms of being as ready as we can be for a storm. I understand we can't afford everything now, but it's easier to buy leave it than to be in that position where you can't afford what you need to evacuate.
Exactly.
And also people usually get, or some people get advances. And keep in mind that if the storm doesn't come, then you won't be getting that salary to pay your bills. So it's not necessarily that that's going to help you either. You might
you don't need to if you plan ahead. Once you plan ahead, you don't need to go through all of that, because you will already have your stuff that you need to take with you to the shelter.
I said this in joke earlier, but it's true. Belizeans are not, we're not planners. we're not, the average Belizean, we were just discussing earlier, is poor. I mean, when you go to the store, you think of buying an extra can of corned beef. You can't, because you can barely afford the one can that you need to feed your family of 4. And the ultimate thing to my mind is that Belizeans are very optimistic people, you know. I mean, I remember when the tsunami was coming, I was on the south side of Belize in the Gungulung area. And nobody moved because they said, it's just not coming here. That optimism prevents a community which is already poor and can't actually, if they were to plan, to do some of the things in the planning, to actually do the planning, because they're saying, listen, I'm optimistic, it just won't come. And I lived in another country where it was worse. I lived in Barbados, and they believed that the toe of God was on Barbados and nothing happened there. So when they were hit with a hurricane, it was a problem. The culture against planning in Belize is the issue.
Yes. It is true.
But I will say this much with the tsunami. I saw a different experience. People were at shelters waiting for them to be open. Some people, some people were waiting at Civic Center to be open. People were at some of the schools. So I think as much as we have had that culture, many people have had very scary experiences that they're starting to understand. So the evacuation plan, definitely safer to go to the shelter and go back home safely to your home than to have to get out of your home in an emergency. But now let's talk about all the other things and make sure the kids are involved, make sure you start early with packing up what you need, and most importantly, go by the Red Cross and pick up your book so you can do this very same exercise that we rushed through.
Or you can prepare your own plan at home, you know, using the template that we showed you. You can prepare your own plan at home.
This is a well thought out booklet. I have to give tremendous kudos to Red Cross for it. I mean, a simple thing right here, looking at important documents, insurance policies.
Yes. Yes.
You know, you would think, you know, I'm getting my passport, I'm getting my driver's license, my social security card. But the insurance policy, when the disaster finishes, you need to be able to go to the insurance company and say, build back my house now.
Exactly. Exactly. And so I also encourage families to make copies of those things. You know, always have a copy and put the original somewhere in a safe place, you know, but make sure that you have them in a and the Ziploc bag I use because it's cheaper and it's safe. You know, once it's in there, it's safe.
So much to think about. There's a whole lot of other information we didn't get into, but we did go through the particulars. Feliciana and Jessie, thank you so much. We greatly appreciate this segment. We hope that Belizeans have been paying attention. And as we said again, you can contact Red Cross for your own publication or just make an attempt. Sit down with your family and make some decisions as to what you'll do in the threat of any disaster. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having us.
We're going to go ahead and take a break, and when we come back, it's to talk about the launch of the carnival season. So stay tuned.